Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. I was just thinking about this, like the next generation of crowd control. They've got these sound cannons or whatever that scream out this, and they're like all the protesters, with their moth-eaten cardigans and their V for Vendetta masks, just like go down on the ground like it's exploding my eardrum places. And I was just thinking about this. Bunch of cops roll in and their big thug-like gear and stuff like that, and they say to the crowd, "We have the moral authority here. We have the moral high ground." The whole crowd just starts laughing at them. And we have authority. You must obey us because authority must be obeyed. The whole crowd laughs at them again, and it's like, "Corporal, hit him with the anti-levity device." Oh. Suddenly it's not that funny anymore. That'd be great. The anti-levity device crowd control weapon. You'd actually literally shoot people with a beam or something that stops them from enjoying themselves. Imagine the power. Alright, our very special guest is James Bartley. What do you reckon? Do you reckon an anti-levity weapon would be, one of the new methods of terrorism or something like that?
Well, we've seen the inverse of that, where humor is used as a weapon. You look at the presidential primaries of 2008, how all the Republican mainliners were instructed whenever Ron Paul said anything, whenever Ron Paul said "boo," right? They were all instructed just laugh hysterically, ha ha ha, giggle giggle giggle. When Dennis Kucinich was mocked in a presidential meeting, they mentioned that Kucinich had a UFO sighting, and right on cue, everybody laughed. Ha ha ha! It's the funniest thing. And so, it wouldn't surprise me that.
Did they call them mainliners because they're all frickin' addicted to heroin?
Well, yeah, they're addicted to power, and some of them probably are druggies and smackies, I'm sure.
Think about the House of Congress. How many of these people are on psychoactive medications or something like that? Just sitting there amongst all of these other psychopaths who also can't think or feel or anything like that, popping a Prozac so they can actually tolerate it, wash it down with some Starburst and some Diet Coke.
That is a fundamental, this whole pharmacological psychiatric tyranny is a fundamental aspect of control, because these SSRIs, not only do they destroy cognitive function, but they literally lower the vibratory ebb of the person and make it easier for entities to form an entity attachment and eventually take them up as a host. Because that is the fundamental building block of the reptilian overlordship, is by inserting enough of their DNA into in the population in general, but these key elite bloodlines in particular, these hybrid people.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Key elite bloodlines. Can you rattle off some names of who these families?
Exactly. Oh, well, the royalty, so-called, the Rothschilds, the House of Windsor, the royal European bloodlines, but the elite all over the world, in China, the people, because what these entities do is they guide them through the whole system. They're kind of pushed and prodded on their way up. Someone could be like a bastard offshoot of an elite bloodline, like the Rockefellers or Rothschilds or whatever the case may be. But there's always a guiding hand to move them through, and they wind up being in high finance, they wind up being in the media, whatever the case may be. So these are the types, but you see them at all strata of society. There's control freaks and sociopaths everywhere you go, because what the DNA manipulation leads to is a lot of people who are outwardly human, but they have a genetic and a spiritual predisposition to be taken up as a host by these entities. And what I try to get people to think about is...
Are you saying that there's a sort of like a family relationship between people who get like abducted / possessed?
Absolutely, because you look at the old term, familiar spirit, family being the operative part of that, familiar spirit, because people are tracked generationally. They're abducted in families, generation after generation after generation. And these entities, because the reptilians use a lot of other entities to do their bidding for them, a lot of the heavy lifting. But you always hear about the Greys, and there's different factions of Greys, Mantis being, so on and so forth. They
Well,
actually work.
are these all the same things? Like, you know, I hear people talk about greys, archons, demons, jinn, mind parasites. Are they all the same thing or what?
There are, I believe, there are expressions of the same thing, of this archontic influence. Just like you and I, most everyone is an expression of creation. This is a plane of dualities, and the dualities are becoming more extreme by the nanosecond. So people, if you notice, are getting more crazy, or they're becoming more grounded, more centered. And even very metaphysically, spiritually grounded people are having challenging times right now because the sun's going crazy and frequencies are increasing. This is why they're really pulling out all the stops, blasting us with discordant frequencies in the music and beaming us electromagnetically and with cell phone towers and so on and so forth, chem spraying us. So what happens is these entities take up these people who have a genetic predisposition to being a host. And what I like to tell people are serial murderers and child molesters are garden variety versions of the perps and pedos that pollute places like Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg, so on and so forth. Because if you look at like a serial murderer, just as you hear biologists and engineers talk about how form follows function, where serial murders are concerned, psychology follows neurology, which follows genetics. These serial murderers lack frontal lobe capacity. Frontal lobe capacity is our impulse control net. It's what keeps us from acting out impulsively and doing crazy things. And what they've done is scientists have done studies on serial killers, one of them in particular, Joel Rifkin, and they found out that not only do they are lacking in frontal lobe capacity, but they don't really have control of their extremities, their limbs, their hands, and their body in general. This is a deadly combination because just as mediums and shamans get these downloads, spiritual downloads of insight of someone's past lives or their own past lives, so on and so forth, what these entities do is they download sadistic imagery nonstop into these serial killers, and they play them endlessly in their minds, and they're forced to act out on them. And because they have...
When you dream, for example, the body secretes a hormone into your body to paralyze you so that you don't act out your dreams. Is this kind of like the opposite of that, where they are actually really starting to act them out and they don't have control of it?
Yes, it's a twofold process, because in their waking consciousness, a lot of times they will hear like a loud, high-pitched tone in their ear, or what sounds like a metallic kind of crunching sound, and then the sadistic imagery starts of torturing women, of killing women, of molesting children. And then when they're asleep, what happens is, it's what I call astral dreamscape manipulation, the bait and switch tactic. And if I had more time, I would go into the dynamics and the details of this. But in short, what happens is, the entities, they push into the sleeping hybrid, the person they're trying to turn into a serial killer, let's say. And oftentimes they already are taken up, or there's already an entity attachment within them. And what they do is, once they're inside this sleeping person, they first eroticize their dreams. They make it seem, this kind of adult content, I won't go into graphic detail, but they make it seem as if they're about to engage in intercourse with a very attractive woman. And just as they're about to engage in intercourse with this woman, they are sodomized from behind by this reptilian entity. And the person wakes up thinking, oh, that's a strange dream. You know, they just kind of blow it off. But then it happens repetitively, where just as they're about to have intercourse, because it's a parallel psychological manipulation, the virtual environment they find themselves in, but the entities also trigger the
That
arousal
sounds
mechanism. So
that sounds remarkably similar to how MK Ultra mind control programs work with the sensory deprivation and the bait and switching kind of thing. And that way, you
yes,
can actually split the personality of certain individuals in order to
absolutely.
create one personality for, say public life, and one personality for private life or military control, super soldiers, etc.
Yes. Yeah, so the original mind controllers were these non-human archontic beings, and also the priesthoods and fraternal orders that they worked through.
Yeah, and
And
ever
so what
since
happens? So
and ever since Operation Paperclip, we've had like what 10,000 plus psych warfare Nazi scientists working with the CIA and goodness knows where else.
yes, because so many of these people that have been turned into serial murderers, or people born into satanic covens, it's not only this familiar spirit archontic influence tracks them generationally, and they will even go to the trouble of arranging unions, even one-off, one-night stands, just so a particular child is born and another offshoot branch of that particular bloodline is created. And what happens is, through all this multi-generational abuse, disassociation occurs, and that creates holes in the auric field. It allows these negative entities to create strongholds in people. I would say that there is no such thing as purely human mind control, because these seemingly human mind controllers themselves have this archontic malign influence working through them.
Yeah.
And
Well, it can't be a human mind control program if all the people in the mind control program that are controlling it are really inhuman. Is that about
yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, well, we're coming to break now. We'll be back shortly, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, James Bartley's website is The Universal's
Seduction, universal seduction.
The Universal
Just type in
Seduction.
James Bartley, universal seduction. You'll
Yeah,
find it.
yeah. I thought it was the Universal's education for a second there. I almost got that right. All right, we'll be right back. Hey, it's not too far off from the truth, is it? We'll be right back after the break at theVinnyEastwoodShow.com with James Bartley. Don't you go anywhere, folks.
If you take an active interest in maintaining the optimum health and well-being of yourself and your family, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is the magazine you've been waiting for. Having taken Australia and New Zealand by storm, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is now available in the UK and Europe. Visit www.nznaturalmed.co.uk or call 01626 337 531 to order your copy now.
James Bartley. What do you reckon? Do you reckon an anti-levity weapon would be one of the new methods of terrorism or something like that?
Well, we've seen the inverse of that, where humor is used as a weapon. You look at the presidential primaries of 2008, how all the Republican mainliners were instructed, whenever Ron Paul said anything, whenever Ron Paul said boo, right, they were all instructed, just laugh hysterically, ha ha ha.
It's like, Corporal, hit him with the anti-levity device. Oh, suddenly it's not that funny anymore. That'd be great. The anti-levity device crowd control weapon. You'd actually literally shoot people with a beam or something that stops them from enjoying themselves. Imagine the power. Alright, our very special guest is... Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. I was just thinking about this, like the next generation of crowd control. They've got these sound cannons or whatever that scream out this, and they're like all the protesters, with their moth-eaten cardigans and their V for Vendetta masks, just like go down on the ground like, it's exploding my eardrum places. And I was just thinking about this. bunch of cops roll in in their big thug-like gear and stuff like that, and they say to the crowd, "We have the moral authority here. We have the moral high ground." The whole crowd just starts laughing at them. And we have authority. You must obey us because authority must be obeyed. The whole crowd laughs at them again.
Giggle, giggle, giggle. When Dennis Kucinich was mocked in a presidential a meeting, they mentioned that Kucinich had a UFO sighting, and right on cue, everybody laughed. It's the funniest thing. And so,
Did they call
it wouldn't
them?
surprise me that.
Did they call them mainliners because they're all freaking addicted to heroin?
Well, yeah, they're addicted to power, and some of them probably are druggies and